Reports are surfacing that Jim Harbaugh may be interested in leaving Michigan to go back to the NFL and potentially coach the Las Vegas Raiders. If that happens, who are the candidates to replace him? Hang with me and I'll give you a list. What is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Coos. I'm coming to you here once again from the hills of wild and wonderful West Virginia. This is Coos' Corner, and I'm serving up college sports content almost every day. If that's for you, hit that red subscribe button so you don't miss my videos. Give me the thumbs up if you like this video. Now let's get on with the show. So, reports are out there that Jim Harbaugh is interested in going back to the NFL. If he does, and he leaves Michigan, who's going to replace him to coach the Wolverines? I've got a list of 7 candidates. Some of these names you've already heard about. Some you may not have. Some have ties to Michigan, some don't. Some are obvious. I'm going to give you these names, starting with the most likely candidate, in my opinion, the one that I think they should hire. Then I'm going to go down the list from there. Name number 1, Matt Rhule. Matt Rhule, we all know, has been coaching the Carolina Panthers for the past 2 seasons. Before that, he coached the Baylor Bears. And then before that, he coached 4 years for Temple. Now, we all know Matt Rhule hasn't had much success in Carolina. The Panthers have struggled, and we all know he's on the hot seat. And reports are out that Matt Rhule actually has interest in the Michigan job should it come open. Now, Matt Rhule's resume as a college coach, 47-43 record overall, 52% winning percentage. Now, on the surface, that does not sound impressive. But you've got to keep in mind the 2 programs he coached. He coached at Temple, which was a complete dumpster fire when he took over. He turned them around in 2 years. He had a 28-23 record at Temple and even won the AAC championship in 2016. He went 2-10 in year 1 there, but then in year 2 he went 6-6. And then the next 2 years he won 10 games each year. Then he got the job to coach Baylor. We all know that Baylor went through that sexual allegation scandal within the program. Cost Art Briles his job as head coach at Baylor. So they were in a mess. Once Art Briles was let go, they brought Jim Grobe in as an interim coach for 1 year before transitioning over to Matt Rhule. So Matt Rhule took over a mess at Baylor. Went 1-11 in year 1, but in year 2 he went 7-6. And then in year 3 he went 11-3 and played in the Big 12 championship game where he ultimately lost to Oklahoma. So Matt Rhule has a history of turning around programs and just being a really good college football coach. Now, he does not have any ties to Michigan specifically, but he does have ties to the Big Ten and the Midwest. He actually played college football at Penn State, so he's very familiar with the landscape in the Big Ten and has played in the Big Ten. Next on the list, another obvious candidate that pops up for almost every job search, Matt Campbell. We all know Matt Campbell's currently the coach at Iowa State. He has 11 years coaching at the FBS level. Before at Iowa State, he coached at Toledo. His overall record in those 11 years is 77-49, which is a 61% win percentage. At Toledo, he had a record of 35-15, had a winning record every season, including 3 9-win seasons. Then he went to Iowa State, where he's 42-34, finished 3-9 in year 1, but then he turned that program around, and they've had a winning record every year, and even played for a Big 12 championship in 2020. And 42-34 may not sound like a great record, but you got to remember the history of Iowa State football. Iowa State was basically a bottom dweller in the Big 12 along with Kansas for years. They always struggled, had very few winning seasons. They would have one winning season every now and again, but never did it consistently. Well, Matt Campbell's come in and they've had winning seasons consistently under his watch. So he's a good football coach, in my opinion. He's had opportunities to leave Iowa State, has yet to do so. There's been rumors out there that he would arguably leave for a job in the Midwest because he is from the Midwest. He's from Ohio. So would he take the job if it was offered to him? Yet to be determined. But I think he'd definitely be a candidate for the job, and he should definitely be on the list for candidates. Next on the list, Luke Fickell. Yeah, Luke Fickell's another name that comes up in every job search. Luke Fickell's coached at the FBS level for 6 years. First year was an interim coach for Ohio State in between the Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer eras. his year at Ohio State, he finished 6-7, but you got to realize the situation. He was kind of thrown into a situation where Jim Tressel had left under scandal, and they were in search for a new coach. So there was kind of that program was a little bit of a mess at that point in time. Urban Meyer was hired on to be the coach. I think it was around 2011 or 2012. He kept Luke Fickell on as co-defensive coordinator, and he did really well at that position. They actually won a national championship during that time. Then in 2017, he became the head coach at Cincinnati. That was his first season there. He finished 4-8 in year one, but ever since then, they've had winning seasons every year and have won at least 9 games. In 3 of those years, they've won 11 games. They also have 2 American Conference championships. Now, there again, no direct ties to Michigan, but there again, he's another Midwest guy. He played college football at Ohio State. He's from the state of Ohio, and this would arguably be a vertical move for him to go from Cincinnati, who's a Group of 5 school, to Michigan, who's a perennial blue blood historic program in the Big Ten. But let's look at Luke Fickell's track record. Luke Fickell has had multiple opportunities to coach at Power 5 schools the last few years since he's been at Cincinnati, and he's turned them all down. Luke Fickell is happy at Cincinnati. He's in the state he grew up in. He and his family are all devout Catholics. There's a heavy Catholic presence and a lot of good Catholic schools in the state of Ohio and in Cincinnati itself. He's perfectly content. Luke Fickell's not the type of guy who chases a dollar. With Cincinnati getting ready to be a Power 5 program, and with he and his family being happy there, and also add in the fact that his son is now on the roster at the University of Cincinnati as an offensive lineman, I don't see him leaving Cincinnati for any job unless maybe Ohio State or Notre Dame would open up. Then he might consider it. But other than that, I think he'll be at Cincinnati for a while. But I do think Michigan should give him a phone call because he's one of the best coaches out there. Next on the list, another obvious one whose name pops up often is Dave Aranda. He's now the coach at Baylor. He replaced Matt Rhule at Baylor. He's been there 2 seasons. His overall record's 14-9, which is a 61% win percentage. He finished 2-7 in the COVID year 2020, but then in 2021, a massive turnaround. Baylor finished 12-2 and won the Big 12 title game over Oklahoma State, and then ended up winning the Sugar Bowl over Ole Miss. Before Dave Aranda was the head coach at Baylor, he was the defensive coordinator at LSU in 2019 when they won the national championship. Prior to being at LSU, he was also the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, Utah State, Hawaii, among some other smaller schools. But he doesn't really have any ties to the Midwest because he grew up in California. So he's not a Midwest guy at all. No ties to Michigan, no ties to the Midwest, no ties to the Big Ten. Other than his days in Wisconsin. So I don't really see Dave Aranda taking the job, to be honest. He seems pretty happy at Baylor. Baylor's got a good thing going there. They're successful. He's building a program there. He has great leadership with his president and Dr. Linda Livingstone and his athletic director and Mac Rhodes. So I don't see Dave Aranda leaving Baylor for Michigan, to be honest. Just my opinion. But Michigan should probably give him a phone call. Now, the next 3 on my list are quote-unquote Michigan men. Now, back in 2007, when Rich Rodriguez left my school, West Virginia, to go coach at Michigan, a lot of the Michigan faithful did not want Rich Rodriguez because he wasn't a quote-unquote Michigan man. He had no ties to Michigan, hadn't played at Michigan, hadn't coached at Michigan. So that caused Rich Rodriguez to not ever be accepted as the coach there. Up letting him go, hiring Brady Hoke, who had a great season in year 1, which, by the way, was with Rich Rodriguez's recruits. But then after that, everything went downhill. Then they ended up turning to Jim Harbaugh. Well, Jim Harbaugh's done pretty well there. He's a Michigan man. So if being a Michigan man is important to him, the next 3 names on the list will probably all be candidates for the job. Now, the first name is the obvious one, and that's Josh Gattis, their current offensive coordinator. Josh Gattis has been the offensive coordinator at Michigan since 2019. He won the Broyles Award, which goes to the top assistant coach in college football this past season. He's also the wide receivers coach at Michigan and has been coaching wide receivers at various stops since 2011. They include Western Michigan, Vanderbilt, Penn State, and 1 year at Alabama, where he also served as co-offensive coordinator. So Josh Gattis was born in Durham, North Carolina, and his college ball was a safety at Wake Forest University. He has coached at Michigan for 3 years as an assistant, so he would probably fall into the Michigan man category. The next one on the list is a definite Michigan man. We're talking about running backs coach Michael Hart. Michael Hart is the all-time leading rusher at Michigan. He rushed for over 5,000 yards in his career there. He was hired on to be the running backs coach in January of 2021. He also coached running backs in Indiana, Syracuse, Western Michigan, and Eastern Michigan. So he's very familiar with the Big Ten, not only from his days at Michigan, but also in the years he coached at Indiana. But Michael Hart has no head coaching experience and has never even been an offensive coordinator. So it would be a huge, huge risk to hire somebody like Michael Hart to jump all the way from a running backs coach to a head coach. I'm not saying it can't be done, but if they want a true Michigan man, then he's probably going to be a candidate. The players love him. He's extremely well respected and well liked throughout the Michigan community. But man, what a risk to hire a guy who would jump straight from running backs coach to head coach. Personally, I think it'd be too big of a risk for a program like Michigan to take. So I don't see him getting the job. Should they at least interview him? I think so. But I don't see him getting it. The next name on the list is one you may have never considered. At least I hadn't. But when I started looking into potential replacement for Jim Harbaugh, I ran across this name. Who is it? Tyrone Wheatley. Tyrone Wheatley is a Michigan man. He played his college football at Michigan. He was born in Michigan. And he's one of the greatest running backs to ever play at Michigan. I think he's fifth all-time in rushing at the University of Michigan. He played running back at Michigan in the early 90s, was the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year in 1992. And then after leaving Michigan, he went on to play 10 years in the NFL. So he also had a successful NFL career. Since then, once he retired from the NFL, he's gotten into coaching. And he's now the head coach at Morgan State in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, which is an FCS school. He's been there since 2019. Now, his record isn't great. He's only 5-18 at Morgan State in 2 seasons. Now, the reason I say 2 seasons is because they did not play in 2020 because of COVID. But they won 2 games in 2019 and then 3 games in 2021. So he's 5-18 in two seasons of coaching as far as on the field. But you can't, I wouldn't say he's got a glaring record as a head coach. However, he's also been a successful assistant coach. He's been a running backs coach at Eastern Michigan, Syracuse, Michigan, and then also served 2 stints as a running backs coach in the NFL for both the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was Doug Marrone's assistant coach for both of those teams when he was the head coach there. So if Michael Hart is a legitimate candidate, then you've got to consider Tyrone Wheatley as a candidate, because even though Michael Hart might be the running backs coach at Michigan now, he doesn't even have head coaching experience. At least Tyrone Wheatley has 2 years of head coaching experience. Well, three technically. So there you have it. Let me know in the comment section who you think Michigan should hire if Jim Harbaugh does leave to go to the NFL. Do you think it needs to be a Michigan man? Does it not? If you like the video, give me the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Don't forget to share it with all your college sports loving friends. Don't forget to check me and my colleagues out on the Coast to Coast CFB network over on Facebook and on Twitter. We try to put videos there almost every day. Check out the links in the description box for my Patreon page to make purchases at Fanatics and at Amazon. All those things will help me out and help me build my channel and help me grow my channel. And also don't forget to check out my channel memberships. Hit the join button right below. Check those out and see what perks are available. I appreciate you tuning in. Q Country Roads.